Everybody, welcome. We've got this great session with you with Steve Gertin. Let me read you the topic. Turn lemons into lemonade, protect and grow your business under the new TCPA rules. We had a session about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and it was very, very good, but we kept on getting more questions. Hey, what about this? What about that? You didn't cover this. So the idea is just to go to Steve. He's currently running Agent Legend, and he has a lot of experience as to what hasn't worked, what's changed, what we should be careful with automation, with our CRMs, with tools like Agent Legend, like all of this stuff. And I'm excited to understand more, Steve, because I don't know that I fully get it. So, dude,
Yeah,
give me a
you're
quick intro, Steve, of who you are, and then let's get into it.
Steve Gertin, CEO of Agent Legend. We operate a communications platform. We run automated text, automated voicemails, ringless voicemails, email campaigns, and then handwritten letters. So obviously, with all the changes, we've been in this world for the last 7, 8 months as it's really picked up steam. No different than what the real estate industry just went through with clear cooperation. This has been our world and our universe for our users that are generating leads, whether it's their own leads or third-party leads, and also just managing their database effectively. I mean, that's as we move forward, and we'll talk about a lot of that today around like the news that's out there. And you mentioned the webinar you did a few weeks back with Matthew Marks at eVocalize. I encourage everybody to go back and watch that because you guys did a great job of going really deep into the topic. And so I know when you and I spoke, it was, all right, great, but let's talk through, those outstanding questions and then just actionable steps forward to really help, everybody in the different business models that we're all working with is like, here's what we're seeing in our universe. We're all operating in our own silos. And so
Yep.
that's what, we're hoping to provide some value and unpack for those in attendance today.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. All right. So, Agent Legend, just so I understand it, from a company that runs off of texting and for a long time, right? I've been using Agent Legend for a long time. What was your main concern as a company saying, oh crap, do we need to change our business model? Do we need to change the way we approach this? Just talk to me about that first.
Yeah. The business model in and of itself doesn't need to change. I believe the way in which we use the technology is really what we're coaching, people to change, right? Is getting away from, if we look at all of the stuff that's going on and why these laws are rolling out, it's all about the consumer experience. And so creating a better consumer experience from the moment they enter your database from day one, as opposed to generic blasts and generic outreach that falls on deaf ears, which ultimately leads to consumers that just get ticked off. And so this is something right, Tristan, we acquired the business, right? We bought the business kind of knowing going into this what was going on. But what we were really laser focused on is like the immense amount of data and information and how we can use that information to understand as new leads are coming in moving forward, where are these consumers in their path to purchase? And then how does a real estate professional or any sales professional for that matter engage with these leads in a better way moving forward? It's as simple as that. And so, yeah, we had some attrition, just like that happens, right? Hey, my business is
Yep.
changing, but we've now gone back to the well and said, okay, great. Let's help you reformulate how to operate. No different than, again, how business had to change for the real estate community, with clear cooperation rolling out a year ago. So these things always evolve, and it is how do you adapt in this? And so I look at just the opportunity and the positives that can come from this in terms of lead quality moving forward versus lead quantity, and how to use that and focusing on that conversion rate and return on investment for everybody in the community moving forward.
Awesome. All right, let's get right into it. Yeah, there is a challenge for us in real estate. Obviously, for us, everything seems to be changing consistently, right? And now the whole three-way agreement with NAR, the state board, and now local MLS is that too. So when it comes to this, my main concern, and guys, jump in with any questions as we're talking, as you get ideas. My main concern is still my CRM, right? I've got a database of 150,000 people in it. That's me, right? But I've been doing this for a while and I go to online leads a lot. So I've got 150,000 people in my database. And now I'm thinking, okay, who can't I contact and who can I, right? I learned in the last session that I could contact people one to one, like one text or phone call, right? But I can't, after a certain amount of time, mass text everyone or mass dial everyone if they've come in and they've just been sitting there. I think it was, and help me out here, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 6 months. What was it?
Around 6 months, yeah, and that's still, as you heard, it's being legislated. It's still, there's moving targets in all of this, but there will be a timetable on it. And what does a existing business relationship look like versus somebody that is cold and truly cold? I think we'll all get flushed out as we continue moving forward.
All right. So then there's that, right? My concern there. And I go, okay, fine. I can retarget a lot of these people on Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah.
Google, bring them back, right? Have them go through the process on the website, click on all the right policies so that we're okay. Now I go to my database with my past clients and my sphere. And I think this is where we have the biggest challenge as agents. There's no clarity because people just throw stuff out on the internet. There's no clarity. It's like, wait a second, what happens to my past clients and those people I've done transactions with or current clients? Um, what happens there, man? How do we approach those, and are they affected? That was the number one question I kept on getting.
Technically, by the letter of the law as it stands right now, if you do not have documented one-to-one consent, that means is for Tristan, right? They have to have in your database, your CRM, whatever you're using, should have this clear opt-in that they have agreed to receive text messages, ringless voicemails, AI voice, you name it, anything that's under the letter of the law. Now, you look at the risk, right? The risk with a past client, these are people who you've done business with. And so it all depends on that appetite and the tolerance for risk in those equations. If this is a past customer that you haven't talked to in 5 years, I'd advise get one-to-one consent. You can do that in a myriad of ways. Email is still okay. And what you do really well, Tristan, is not saying I need your consent to talk to you. It is, I want to continue adding value to you. So as the community thinks about why this is coming out, is like the generic outreach of, are you looking to buy right now? Are you looking to sell right now? And those things fall on deaf ears. But when you lead with value about, it can be market activity, it could be any updates in anyone's business. That is the type of content that you want to be sending out. And for somebody like yourself that has a large database, that's been the shift in where we focus our attention on. So I'll unpack it in a couple of different ways. For those that are wondering, what can I do right now? You have 20 days left. Technically, the rules will roll out on the 27th. That's the go live. But the 26th is really that deadline. You could still use regulated technology. And we're doing a ton of this with our platform right now to go out to anybody in the database that you do not have one-to-one consent with. And that is relevant for, that's relevant for if you got Zillow leads, realtor.com leads, because those lead forms are generally redistributed and it doesn't clearly articulate that they are going to be reached out from your company specifically. And so you can reach back out to them and get that necessary consent for them moving forward.
Okay.
The other side of this is in regards to segmentation of the database. And so as we think about how we use regulated technology or really any automation moving forward, what we're encouraging is focusing your live efforts. So you mentioned I can still text, I can still call. I mean, that's the one that we'll focus on is where do you make your manual calls? Where do your ISAs make their manual calls? And how do you understand where the lead is in the funnel? And that's where we've really focused our attention is if you got a database of more than 150,000 people, you think of it as a sales funnel. How do you understand who's at the bottom of that funnel focusing your live day-to-day efforts on those individuals. And then you can still engage with technology. Well, you can still engage with email. I mean, that's a really easy entry point to bring them back to your shop, but it is value add. And in those email drips, get them to reconsent with any forms. And so that will help you protect and insulate the database. But no longer does it make sense to continue to just spend money and dollars. I mean, that's expensive to engage with a whole database of 150,000 people. Let's just focus on the people that are the ones that are showing behaviors that they're ready to transact. And so those can be handled in a little bit more, you're not eating the whole elephant, right? You're eating a smaller chunk of it. And so you can really double down in those activities day to day. Seems scary, but once you've done that first audit of understanding, who do I have opt-in from? Who do I not? And tagging them and segmenting them appropriately, making sure that your tech providers, whoever those are, have the guardrails in place to protect you, because you don't want to be sending out any messages to people who haven't. Now you're up, there's going to be secret shoppers out there, so you got to protect yourself. But once you've done that proper segmentation, now you can really get to work and building remarkable experiences for every lead, which is, again, what this is all intended to do, is because, as I look at your forms and everybody, it's like, I got 12 robo dials today. And that's the root of where this is all coming from is,
I know, man,
is like nobody's answering the phone. So we get into these habits of buying time. Yeah.
On the robo dial, like you should have never been robo dialing everyone. You should just dump that crap, please. This is a relationship-based business, one-to-one. Like, yes, you can use tools to help you scale like we have, right? I mean, 150,000 people, I have to use tools, automation, AI, but it comes down to the sincerity of the message. That's the key. Some good questions here. Let's start with Robert. How do we ask for consent? Where does that look like? Where does it lie? Where do we start with that?
Yeah, so depending upon if you have your own forms, generally we're seeing different providers that have the call to action is generally, hey, we're updating our database. Would you like to still be in contact with us? If so, please opt in here, right? You don't have the necessary opt-in, and that form needs to include certain elements. And so we have on our website, if people go to agentlegend.com, you can go to our compliance page, and there's a downloadable PDF that breaks the 15 critical elements down. I've heard, I think on Matthew's previous webinar, the attorneys over at Troutman and Amin, they are really great at what they do. And so again, because these variables are changing consistently, those are the critical elements that you need to have in your lead form to ensure that you're compliant. And so check those out. I encourage people to go and visit that. Once you have that necessary consent, just make sure that's documented. Go ahead, Tristan.
Are you talking about the free download that you have, which is the opt-in before your leads opt out? Is that the one?
Yeah, the form is basically what you would need. So these are the 15 elements that
let me share my screen so that everyone can see this. I didn't know you guys had this. Is this the right page?
That's it. Go to the free download and click it.
Okay.
And these are the items that I'd encourage, and we can send this over to you as well so folks have it. But if we break down these 15 elements that are on the second page, because there's a whole, and we're seeing this from, it goes back to those, I've seen some questions coming in from third-party lead vendors. That's where you want to go if you have a vendor that's generating leads from you, to ensure that their new forms, and they should have been doing this previously, because technically if your leads are coming in today and they're selling you leads that do not have one-to-one consent, they have an expiration date on them. You have 20 days. So good luck on converting those. And we don't want to be spending money on those types of leads. The thing you're thinking is go to the lead vendors, make sure that these forms are updated so that they are compliant in the new laws, so that any leads that you accumulate today and moving forward have the expressed written consent one-to-one for you to reach out to them. Don't change the habit of calling, like use, and so the speed to lead doesn't change, making sure you're engaging with leads in a timely manner. But we know that most of those leads will go into a longer term nurture strategy. And in order to execute upon that using regulated text, ringless voicemail, auto dialers. We can talk about that as well. But in order to use those, you do need to show proof of how the lead entered into the consent form and what they opted into. And there's a whole myriad of things that are still working on being flushed out. And so as that deadline approaches, we'll be updating that form to ensure that folks have the latest and greatest information to just implement within their certain processes as well.
I like that, man. All right, so I just downloaded it. And by the way, if you guys missed the link, it's up, just scroll in the chat. It's right there. And you can download it. What I'm going to do, unless you think otherwise, Steve, I'm going to upload it to ChatGPT and have it create, just so people can see like there's an option, right? ChatGPT, and have it create a consent form there, just so that people have a backup, right? You guys can do that as well. There are a couple of other questions that I want to get to and then move on. Judy's got one. My leads are told when they register on my website that they will be contacted. So is my only concern contacting them via automated text after 6 months or whatever the cutoff date is? Is that her only concern?
Well,
what should she be looking out for?
Let's start with first what that lead is opting in for, right? If it's on your site, and this is a great segue too, is the shift from third-party leads to generating your own and keeping and building a defensible moat for your business moving forward. But those leads that are coming in through a lead form on your site, make sure that you have verbiage in there that says you are consenting to be reached out from XYZ business. It's got to be specific to your business operation. So it is not your name as a realtor, but your broker of record, so that that is the business entity that will be reaching out to that prospect, and having verbiage in there saying you are also agreeing to regulated technology in the form of text messages and conversational AI and the different variables. Then now you've collected that one-to-one consent and you have it. And so until that lead opts out, you're good by the letter of the law. So did that answer that question there, Tristan? I wasn't sure if I went over that. But
you did. It's good. I mean, and also don't after the 6 months, if you were robo dialing, using a lot of the voicemail drops that are being sent out by bunches, you can no longer do that, right? So just know that as well. Mass texting as well. It doesn't apply to email. Email has its own rules, right? We shouldn't be spamming our email. It apply to making cold calls, because we're usually hand dialing those or doing one dial at a time, right? The gray area was if we're using a dialer that goes one dialer to the next, that was in a gray area. So the dialer, there is no, that hasn't been talked about yet fully. So we can stay tuned for that. Chris has a great question. How would you handle leads that we don't have consent to call, that came from a third party, which were not part of their consent?
So if you do not have their consent, you have 20 days. You can reach out to them if you've been dripping on them with whatever technology, and your goal is to get them to consent to have your business specifically engage with them after the 27th. If not, lead's dead, put them in the trash, and you got to move on. You could still you could still email that prospect if you want, but you can also manually call them. The other is to go to that lead vendor, if you're still working with them right now, if you haven't, and make sure that the updated forms are already in production. Because if you're spending money to generate those leads, you only have 20 days, and it's a lot more work to get the consent from the consumer to do that. That's where I've seen it. Our users that are leveraging our platform it's not just texting and saying, we need your opt-in to continue to communicate with you. There's value behind why I should opt in. Why, as a consumer, if I've got 48 other agents reaching out to me, that's what happens. I mean, that's how this problem occurs, right? And I think Matthew and yourself, Tristan, broke that down. Is the root of this was because the lead aggregators, the ones that would generate the leads, would distribute these leads multiple times. And it would not just be if I was opting in for real estate services. I would also get pinged by a mortgage professional, an insurance provider, a moving company. And before you know it, those are when the texts, and we see those, that's agent legend. We see that stuff coming in. It is stop, F off, get out of here. And that's where the root of where this was coming from really lies. And
Yeah,
so value
that's true.
behind it. And I think that that's another great session is to understand from those that are out there what has been working. We've seen people that are recording videos of saying, if you want to understand whether it's information about the market or a lot of content around the new rules in real estate, those are the questions that people are getting. Use that information as a way to get clear opt-in. Now I'm getting value as a consumer. And if you give me value, I continue to go further down your sales funnel. And when it comes time to select my professional, when I'm actually ready to buy, you're the person that I'm going to reach out to. And if we can get people to start thinking that way a little bit more, it's not everyone. I mean, the people it's a certain cohort within the industry that generated this. And so if we can get people working that way, I think all will be great. Just like we're already experiencing with the clear cooperation in place as well.
Yeah, I think if we look at, dude, you make such a great point. I think what we're looking at is a lot of the laws that are being put in place, and a lot of these lawsuits that have come out are pointing us in a direction that's forcing us to provide more value to the consumer, a lot more transparency, and really connect deeper with them. I almost think, like, now looking back at us changing all, forget NAR not doing a great job representing us. Forget that
Yeah.
part, because I still think they sucked ass. Now, outside of that, forcing us to do what we're doing now with the buyer agreements, I think, it's forcing agents to do a much better job explaining their worth, right? And if I can take a look at that as more positive, I'm like, okay. And I take a look at this and I say, okay, great. I actually loved this one, because I hated realtor.com coming through and saying, hey, consumer, click on this. We're going to send the lead out. We're going to send you out to like 4, 5, 6 different agents. We're going to sell the lead to 6 agents, right? Or 3, however many they sell it to. And
Yeah.
then all these agents call. And then by the time the 3rd agent calls, if they call, the client's like, well, what is this? I just wanted to see the property. I just wanted to talk to one agent, right? And so this changes the way we approach it. And I think you brought up earlier, not today, earlier when we were texting or emailing, you brought up how this is going to create better quality communication and better, in essence, less leads, but higher quality leads. And you mentioned with my big database, it's like, hey, it's okay. Like, you're going to be a sniper, like one on one, and you're going to do much better. So I like that approach, man. I agree with you on it. With Agent Legend, when we're looking at updating and auditing the database, is there anything that you guys are doing with your current clients to help them out with that?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the big shift in our business was Agent Legend, Tristan, right? When you were, with the tenure of this business, been around for 9 years, really one of the first platforms that enabled the auto texting, the drip campaigns with texting, primarily a communications vehicle. And these communications would go out and treated every prospect as if they were the same. But in the industry, we're seeing this big shift of understanding the consumers better. So when you generate a lead from Zillow, not every lead is ready to buy today. And so where we help our users is helping them understand, is this a marketing qualified lead, somebody that is top of the funnel, just starting their journey in the process? They don't need to be sold to. These folks need education. They need blog posts. They need the stuff, Tristan, that you send out. You do. I'm on your text chain, right? I get those. It's always value. And so bring me the value as a consumer. Those marketing qualified leads, those folks are already likely in 6 other agents' databases.
Yes. If they're looking at property, 100%.
And that's not just because of the lead generation problem. That's because I may start on Zillow. I want to see this property. Great. I may go to Keller Williams's website locally. I may go to EXPs, and all of a sudden, all of my information is commingled in every other database. Most agents, when that lead comes in, they'll hit me up 3 times, 5 times. And then if I don't convert, if I'm not ready to buy, they go away. And maybe I get nurtured via text or anything that puts me on more of a nurture campaign. So we're really laser focused is helping people understand who these leads are when they enter your database. And without getting into too much of the detail, but really we live in a data-driven world. When you're on your cell phone, people always wonder why you get retargeted with certain ads and stuff like that. We have sourced information that allows us to understand now who's a marketing qualified lead versus who's actually bottom of the funnel, the people that are not only clicking on properties on your site, not only viewing properties, opening emails. Those are variables that have been used in the industry for a number of years to give me an indicator, am I looking to buy or sell? And that's what we're trying to really isolate for all of our customers moving forward. And then the communication follows. Only once we understand who these prospects are. And you can understand who they are by hopefully having a great conversation with them the moment they enter your database and taking the notes. But most of them, and this will hopefully get better with the changes, most of them are like, I'm not answering any robocalls. I'm not answering any text messages because I got 7 of them coming in. You don't get to understand who I am. So we help the users understand by using the data that's coming through your database. So Follow Up Boss, Sync, Sierra, all the great platforms that are out there, Lofty. We harvest that information. And then we also help our users now understand what that consumer is, what they're doing offline. So, and then we bring them together. And so nobody is doing that. And we really help our users. It's lead intelligence. That's the solution that helps our folks get smarter about who these people are. And if you can get smarter, you create a better experience for everybody. And so now the path to purchase looks so much different. So I'm not bombarding you with messages. I let you work your way down the funnel. And the moment that your signals show that I'm getting close to a transaction, now we pick up the phone. Now we pick up that phone. We make the necessary calls to close that deal because you've been effectively nurturing them, bringing them back to your database with value. I mean, that's the big thing here is there's got to be some value there because why wouldn't I just keep going to Zillow?
What does value look like? Almost like we have to rethink what value we're offering. What does that look like, right? Because it's not the value we think, it's the value that the audience thinks. There are some great questions. Do you mind if I go to some questions?
Yeah, I'm seeing some of them as well. So I'll let you drive it here.
All right. There's about 6 that I missed here that are good. Let's start with Joe. Joe, what's up, Joe? Thanks for jumping on. Are smart plans that text individuals, they're not mass texting, not necessarily at least, right? They're just automated. What does that look like?
Letter of the law would say that it is. It's still in there. And that's, I mean, our platform, we're doing text strips. It's not load everybody into one text and it goes out. Those are still part of the regulated technology. So erring on the couch, and maybe that will change, but again, those are set up automatically. So one would lump them into that, and we know how attorneys will operate. And tech
for sure.
Letter of the law. That's just, I would protect yourself in that fashion.
Yeah, the answer, Joe, is yes.
And I've seen
attorneys will look at it and be like, bad, Tristan. That's what they'll tell me. So I'm not going to do it.
Yes.
Judy, that answers your question too. Robert, there are a few laws that led up to this too, but they've all been anti-spam laws, even though they're separate from email, they're cold calling, they're robo-dialing. It just all led up to this. So that's what we're seeing. And can we get a copy of this recording? Yes, I put up a link there to the YouTube channel. And if you want to get a hold of Steve, we did put up the Agent Legend link above. And Steve, if you want to put your email or how to get a hold of anybody at Agent Legend, if they have questions, you can dump that there as well. Let me see here.
Yeah, I'll put it in.
Neil says,
so email me directly. There's a.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'll put my email in here. We're getting flooded with questions, and most things are unique to the business. So I'll put that in here, no problem.
Perfect. Next, can we get a copy of this recording? Yes, it'll go up on YouTube. So go ahead and go to that link that I put up above. Steve, good question here from a lender. As a lender, can you still call your realtor partners dead leads? Those leads that have been in the database, let's just assume over the period of time. Can you call them?
No. Now, again, that's some of this is where you'd have lender and realtor relationships. I've opted in. You still can for the next 20 days, but I've opted in to receive marketing communications specifically to your realtor partner. And so in the future, work with the realtor partner to also have, and we're seeing this, I think I've seen Zillow might be updating, right, with their home mortgage and I've seen other partners doing this where the consent first, if you have this relationship, this might be relevant if there's other lenders on the call as well. But the opting in to receive communications from the real estate professional. And then that second page being, would you also like marketing communications from our partner at ABC Mortgage, for example? Now they've opted into both. And so you've protected yourself there. And again, the consumer's expecting it. So the moment that you communicate with them, there's no longer the, who are you? It's going to be more on, hey, you asked for me to reach out. I'm showing up right now. How can I help you? And back to the quantity versus quality, that's where you'll start seeing those conversations. And that's what we all want, is just really strong conversations with people who have asked us to communicate with us.
Got it. I like that. And then the other one here. Oh, this is a great one. Rich Palacios, great question. Still confused on paid third-party leads, such as ZBuyer. Great one, because ZBuyer kind of bulks the leads and says, everyone call them, right? That's a perfect example. Do these not have consent then? How does that work? Do you have an answer for that, Steve?
So, and I went to, because I watched the previous one as well, and ZBuyer was brought up. I think they've changed how they're making the connections where they are getting consent from the consumer to connect you directly. Let's just use those examples of ZBuyer, maybe RedX, LandVoice, who are distributing individuals in a mass format. And so those ZBuyer, I would critique and understand the form that the consumer has filled out to opt into. They may have a form, and I've seen some of these that maybe there's 10, 15 agents listed in that form. That's what they have to do now. And me as a consumer, I have to select one by one who I want to reach out to me. That, by the letter of the law, is fine. So review, I always encourage people to go to the lead vendor. Ultimately, you're spending money with them. You got to make sure that they have your back as well, not just not just themselves. And so to look at that form first. And so if they have that opt-in, they've said for you, great, you should be good, but just make sure whatever platform you use for collecting leads, your CRM, your database, make sure that that is documented, and then you have that consent. The other, Tristan, would be for the RedXs and the LandVoices of the world, those that have expired and for sale by owners. These individuals have not opted into anything. You can't use an auto dialer. You can't dump them into an agent legend campaign, for example. You now need to, you can pick up your phone and manually dial those prospects. Your goal is to have a good conversation with them and then get their consent. And now they're yours. And you've now done the dirty work to get that into your database. You have the safety net knowing that they're not in 25 different databases. And now you can really nurture that prospect accordingly.
Yeah, I like that. That's, yeah. And remember, you can still pick up the phone and call one-to-one, right? As long as they're not on the do not call list, if you're referring to expireds or those types of geo dialing and all that we do. Neil says, what's up, Neil? On a 3-line dialer, can there be a message said, hello, hello, can't hear you while you are on another call?
So a 3-line dialer, right?
I don't think,
if I'm dialing 3 numbers, That would be regulated technology, right?
Yep.
Consumer core experience, that sets you up for a potential issue there.
I agree.
Mojo dialer, right? Those are things that, and I've seen some of that is like, how are their businesses going to change? It'll be interesting to kind of learn how they can navigate that. I think dialing through a database of individuals that do have one-to-one consent technically is fine. So you should be good there. I saw one about like Home Light and maybe some of those that are doing transfers.
Yeah, the referral companies, all of the referral companies.
Yeah, I've seen it done a number of different ways because technically, right, if I as a consumer have opted in to have Home Light, for example, communicate with me, Home Light can contact me. On that call, if they want to transfer me to somebody else, I need to either, that's got to be recorded to say, yeah, Steve Gertin at ABC Realty, sure, connect me with them. Or I've seen companies now sending a text to that consumer, and it's a bit antiquated, but they send a text to that consumer and say, before we transfer you, opt in to receive this transfer to another consumer. Again, that goes back to each one of those vendors. If, again, you're investing with them, is understanding and getting their input, because I've seen it done a number of different ways. And you always have to say, we're not attorneys here. And likewise is like, you got to understand and what they are doing before you put those things into action. That's kind of a murky situation because I've seen it done a couple of different ways to date. And again, it's not letter of the law yet. I know Zillow about 2 weeks ago, right? I went through their lead funnel and understood what they're doing. That stuff hasn't changed yet. And so I'd be very interested to understand how they'll be adapting, given kind of how their P&Ls look when you look at their financials. So that'll be interesting.
John Hickey email. The email doesn't fall into this category, and they have different rules. Remember, they have the non-spamming rules that came out a while ago. So just don't spam. That's it. Don't spam. They have spam rules. So that's a separate thing. Should you cancel Mojo?
Yeah, I saw somebody in there. No, I think right now is the time. We have 3 weeks. Is go out to your vendors.
Yes.
And this includes like it's auditing your vendor community. I mean, this is we're in that same bucket, right? And so what are you doing to protect my butt, right? What are you doing to protect me? Because we just went through a wave of that and everybody's sensitive to it. And how does this impact your business model? Those that we see this the most of, those that have big databases. Tristan, you mentioned the 150,000. Audit it first. That's what you should be doing, is understanding, who do I really need these opt-ins from? And now let's develop a plan to go get them. And you can use technology in a certain way. And you have really good vendors out there that have content that's already ready made for you. If you don't have the capacity to do it, you could try to find a way to get that opt-in, but you have time. If they opt out and you're scared of that, they're dead anyways on the 27th. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and nobody wants to go out of business, guys. So they're going to make an effort to change, right? So just make sure to ask, hey, what are your policies for the new TCPA guidelines dropping on January 27th? And most will give you a good response. My main concern is still those that are in our database, Steve. That's my main concern, because they fall out. They're mine. They fall outside of leads that are being given to me, right? I just need to make sure that I don't get into problems. There was a question earlier that says, well, how do people know, right? How are you going to get reported, right? So, Steve, how are people going to get reported? Take me through that.
Well, you have secret shoppers that are out there. They're starting. There's attorneys that now, and I wish we've been capturing, I get Facebook ads now, where there are attorneys marketing to consumers. And they are specifically not saying, have you gotten they're not using that language. It is like, have you been contacted by a real estate professional unsolicited recently? Contact us, understand your rights. That stuff's going to happen. That's where some of this is. How will they know? That's where some of this is going to come from. Your brokers should also be well educated on what this means, and not completely shutting everything up, but doing the due diligence to ensure that your platforms, your CRMs have the guardrails in place that will safeguard you. Does this lead have one-to-one consent or not? Simple, hard stop. If they do not, we cannot use regulated technology. Now, Tristan, for somebody that they have a massive team, they're doing a ton of transactions, they have a large database of past customers, technically, have not given you one-to-one consent. That is one I always advise. Go to when the letter of the law really rolls out. Technically, you have an existing business relationship with them. They know you, they know, like, and trust you, hopefully. And so those people, as they gear up for what we really focus on is like those that mine the database win. It's more profitable to find somebody who's a repeat buyer than it is to acquire a new lead. And so how do you make sure that you insulate those leads? I'd argue that those are lower risk given they've already done business with you. But again, those are items that I would still, as we get near the deadline, might be a good follow-up just to make sure that people feel really great about how to handle those types of prospects.
Agreed. I like that. The one thing that came up last time was, what about the dialer? Because we're going to go back to Mojo really quick. The challenge was that it's that being done on a dialer. Any calls, even if it's on a one-on-one, it's a gray area because they haven't touched on it yet. And so I would say until they do, you don't want to get into future problems right now with real estate at the front and center of every single attorney out there trying to do some type of a class action lawsuit against us. Just hand dial them. Look, I hand dial expireds. People are like, why do you do that? I'm like, it's just the experience, right? For them, not for me. I want to go slow. I want to ask how they're doing. That's what we've done. And just a reminder, nowhere ever should you be calling anyone on the DNC list, expired or not. That's a no-no. Bad. All right. Just a reminder that's included in real estate. I know some people out there say, hey, yeah, I call DNC numbers. They're not in the world we're in right now, please. So just remember that. You can scrub DNC numbers through whatever company you use. We use RedX. RedX scrubs them. It says this number's in the DNC, so we just don't call them. We skip them, and that's also why we hand dial as well. We like to go slow. What were you going to say, Steve?
Back to your earlier point around you mentioned hand dialing. I know we use Follow Up Boss, for example. We get registered phone numbers that, for some of our users and our customers are like, well, this is my personal number. I don't want to be calling people with my personal number, which is a valid point. And so that is a big point as we're paying attention to what's going on and how the changes are being rolled out. I'd imagine just if it's a business number in a platform like Follow Up Boss, if I'd click a button and it's not dialing 20 people or 3 people for that matter, it's just a one-to-one, I'd classify that lower on the risk scale because how I operate in Follow Up Boss, I'm mobile. So I'll go to the contact in my Follow Up Boss and I'll click call and away we go. I think that's one that would be on a lower risk scale, given other than me punching in my own, your phone number. That's just what I'd think through as well.
Yeah, good point. Good point on that. Will says, how do we, when we get the data search for a farm area, right? How do we get consent? So consent's already given if people are not on the DNC list, right? And just make sure that you're not grabbing all that data and mass texting and mass calling. That's the no part. You don't do that, right?
Correct.
You do one-on-one, right? One-on-one call, right? That you can do. And then once you reach them and then you have a conversation, then you can go through the whole process. And I think the other piece, this is where we have to start thinking, what are the things that we can do if you want to go that route that provide value and bring people to you? Look, I would retarget that whole list, Will. You have Facebook and Instagram, retarget everybody. 70% or more of Americans are on Facebook, right? And Instagram. Retarget, bring them into your world through the value that you want. And then they opt in, and then you can call them, text them, automate, whatever you want. That's the future of what we're doing. Anything I
Yeah,
missed, Steve?
I see another one here from Aaron Lanning. If we call, they say yes for us to stay in contact. Do you recommend we send anything else via text, email, confirming they just said over? Yes. So we get this a lot. Hey, I called them manually. I'm following the letter of the law. We've had a great conversation. I'm good. If that's not documented somewhere, you have nothing to lean on. And so where we see individuals and how they've adapted to leveraging our platform would to have a ready-made campaign that's already got that opt-in consent form included. And so you hop off the phone, you get that text out to the user. How you get that text out is you just have to manually, send the text. Once that comes in, have it all connected into your CRM, have it all set up. We do a lot of that, right? To make sure this information needs to be in your CRM, because to the earlier question around how will somebody know, if an attorney sends you an email, which your heart will drop, and they're requesting proper consent, go into your CRM, take that screenshot, here you go. And that's going to be a lifesaver for a number of users. So that's how I'd handle it.
Steve, so let's say we want to do that through Agent Legend. I already have Agent Legend. Let's say I wanted to do that. Actually, that's probably awesome, because I dial a lot of, so I also geo prospect and I call expireds, not as many as I used to. But when I'm dialing somebody new and they're like, yeah, Tristan, whatever. Or I'm re-engaging people in my database right now, right? Right now. And I want them to get into this form for the next however months. How would it work with Agent Legend? I put them into the Agent Legend system. There's a text smart plan that you guys have, and then it goes out. The first text says, hey, you're agreeing for me to communicate with you. Take me through that, please.
Yeah, generally it's a template, because right now we're kind of technically you send an automated text. Now you're technically in that bucket. We just have the templates created, and you can use our system to go in, because the contact is injected in our system. We enable you to text that user. And the texts are generally like, we just spoke over the phone. So you have that written in that text. Here's a link to opt in so we can stay in contact moving forward. Link drives to a page. You can use, whether you have a vendor or your website provider should be having forms that now enable one-to-one consent. Get that documented. That then gets sent directly back into whatever CRM you're using or database. So that's how we've handled it. Now we've done our job, and now they've gotten segmented accordingly, so that in the future, when you want to outreach in a more automated fashion, again with value, you have your list, so that you're not commingling prospects. That, to your point, if you're circle prospecting, you got to keep those people separate. Make sure we put guardrails to ensure that we ask every lead that comes in, do you have one-to-one consent? If not, they can't come into our platform. And so that's how we're handling the situation. The do not call is another one that we got to really buckle down on to ensure that folks aren't reaching out to those individuals as well. So that's how we handle it. From there,
I like it.
Ours is a self-serve platform. So now you have contacts that have opted in. Again, depending upon, the big thing is where they are at in their stage. Are they marketing qualified, or are they a prospect, a lead per se? Everybody kind of mixes leads up, because not everybody's a lead. And so once they are top of the funnel, build a campaign that is value, 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 value. When they get down to ready to buy, that's let's get together, let's grab coffee, let's go on showings, let's set a listing appointment, and away you go.
Okay, dude, you did this to help us out, so thank you. I want to be able to help you out. Agent Legend, let me just share. I've been with you guys for, I don't know how long, dude, 2016, 17, I don't know. It's been a long time. I've been with you guys for like 8-9 years. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Everyone jumping in, I'll share the Agent Legend website. This is their main website. If you were to describe what you guys help us with, what would that be? Just so people understand the importance of your company for our industry.
We help you reach the right people with the right message at the right time. That's effectively what we do. if you go to the creative on the top, we take your database, which generally looks like that illustration on the left, and then we help
Right here.
you, yep, using artificial intelligence and big data that's available. That's the bread and butter of what we do. We segment your database and helping you understand whether you're the owner of the company. We turn your database into an asset that you can now use to generate more predictable revenue for your company moving forward. That's at the core of what we do. And Tristan, right? The communications follow. That stuff's secondary as to how do we talk to our people. We got to first understand them, and that's what we're focused on.
I love it, man. All right, everyone, please do me a favor and visit the website. I did put the link. It's the last link in the chat right now. It's agentlegend.com, just as a favor to Steve. And if you like what you see, the pricing is there as well. So let me stop that share. I think we got most of the questions. I think we did a better job, Steve, in this one, answering the questions, going through them one by one. We covered a lot. And I think that took the webinar through a really good organic process. Aaron says, yeah, 100%. Look, we'll keep up 3 more. So if you have questions, I'm sure they'll get more refined and some people will jump in and ask the same ones. That's fine. Amy Esposito, can we sum up what's not allowed? I think I'll just tell you what is allowed. How's that? Which is probably the best. As long as they're not on the do not call list, you can call one-to-one, right? Does not matter. You can call one-to-one your past clients one-to-one. You can call text, you can text them, right? The big problem with this whole thing was the mass texting and the mass dialing that was being done. This is why the 3 dialing thing is a no-no, right? Because it's considered part of this whole process. So email is okay. One-to-one conversations are okay. That's just what you have to remember. And everyone coming through anything that you own as far as software, tech, anything, just make sure you have that consent form there. And if you're a little lost, I can almost guarantee you that your brokerage will already have a consent form. And if you don't, the best step, go to Agent Legend, go to resources, download it, give it to your broker and say, do something good with this. And they'll probably send it to attorneys and get it back to you. The other thing I would do is if you're having challenges on what can I do as texting and automation and voicemail drops and everything, just go check out Agent Legend. We've had them for 8 to 9 years, I think it was. We've been using it consistently for that long, and they do a very good job. Steve, anything else?
You nailed it. It is right now. You have 20 days. There's a shot clock. So for those that are, scared of how their database will be impacted, go out, get the necessary opt-ins. And then after is where you really want to lean on the practices that we shared today. And again, I'd go and watch that previous webinar as well, which does a really good job, Tristan, of actually going into the minute details of everything that's going on. As new news rolls out, we're obviously updating our folks, and then Tristan, I'll reach out to you, and if it makes sense to pop back on, we can do another session because it looks like there's a lot of questions, and obviously we want to help in any way that we can. So always appreciate this, and we look forward to the next one.
I appreciate it, man. Everyone else, we'll see you later. This is recorded. We're blasting this out to everyone that watched it and those who registered that didn't show up as well. Steve, thank you so much. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Tristan. You as well. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.